everybody. I'm Catherine. I'm the Communications and PR Manager at Sweep, and I'm going to be moderating this panel discussion for you. We're talking about the ways that sustainability is smart business. It's a bit of a motto for us here at Sweep. You might have heard us say it once or twice. Sustainability and ESG are not just ethical imperatives. It's also two areas that are really quite fast becoming key drivers of business resilience, innovation, growth for your companies as well. So whether you're navigating regulations or reducing your operational costs or maybe unlocking new value streams, new consumers, the companies that are leading the charge in this area are the ones that are using their sustainability data as a strategic asset. And today I'm joined up here by three inspiring leaders, I think we can call you, who really, you are at the forefront of this transformation for three very different companies, so doing quite different things, but it is all around your sustainability data. So before we launch into our discussion, would you introduce yourselves?
Right, so my name's Elisa Hyman. I'm the Group Sustainability Manager for Butternut Box. And we are the leading UK and Europe fresh pet food company, or dog and cat food company. We just launched cat food last year. And when I say fresh, what I mean is that we use fresh ingredients. That's actual trims of meat. We use vegetables. We steam cook it, so it keeps the nutrients in. And then we freeze it immediately, and then it gets delivered straight to our customers' doorsteps in a box. That's why we're called Butternut Box. And we currently have a manufacturing facility up in, near to Doncaster. We're building our second manufacturing facility in Poland. It's going to be 3 times the size, and it's going to service our ever-growing European market.
And you're a B Corp.
And we're a B Corp.
Which is no mean feat. I think a lot of people know that.
We're just going through recertification at the moment, so hopefully still a B Corp.
And we also have Ines.
Yes, so
Oh, I don't think it's on.
sorry everyone.
Maybe it is on.
Hello. Now it's on. Yes, so I'm Ines Sorda. I am the Sustainability Manager at Wickes. I am one half of a tiny but mighty team of 2 on sustainability at Wickes. We are a DIY and home improvement retailer. We operate across the UK, but obviously we have a very broad supplier base that comes to us from all over the world, and we are kind of looking at the difficult journey of decarbonising the business, but also decarbonising the projects that our customers employ in their own homes. So working across the entire spectrum with our suppliers. We have fairly challenging science-based targets set. We're kind of ahead on some, not on others. But we work very closely with all of our suppliers, and we're very focused on getting the data together to tell our story so that we can bring even more people along that developmental streak with us.
Lovely. And last but not least, Chris from Foster Partners.
So, hello. I'm Chris Trott. I look after sustainability policy and research at Foster Partners. We're a global architectural company, probably best known for our buildings. St Mary Axe just around the corner, otherwise known as the Gherkin. Spitalfields just outside, and the market, projects of that nature. I wear 2 hats. One of my hats is to help us with projects, and the other one of my hats is to look after our CSER team, which is where we use the Sweep product. So today I'm here really talking about looking at our own business internally rather than looking at the buildings that we design for our clients. I think one of the distinctions between us is that we're not in charge of all the decisions on our buildings. We don't sell the building as a product. We actually design the building for others. So we influence that. We don't have that choice. So we are now in transition. We're onboarding with Sweep. We're in the first year of doing so. We're in more than 20 locations throughout the globe, and one of the things that we're doing now is we're gathering a lot more data from all of our global operations, where we've set ourselves up to do a science-based targets approach with Race to Zero, and we're actually putting the profile together for that and gathering the data and information at the moment.
Brilliant. So lovely to introduce you all to our audience. And Chris, you've teed us up really nicely to talk about what people are doing with their sustainability data, because I think everyone in this room has probably got different focuses, right? So Elisa, you mentioned about how Butternut Box is growing really rapidly into European markets. What sort of sustainability targets are you setting? What are the main ones?
Well, we've got basically carbon reduction targets across all of our 3 scopes. So for scope 1 last year, we were able to actually achieve a 6.5% carbon intensity reduction. And for scope 2, even though we buy all of our electricity, it's all renewable. We measure that still, obviously, because of location-based emissions. And scope 3 is our biggest challenge. That's driven effectively by our ingredients. One of the big ways that we've managed to reduce our scope 1 emissions is we invested very heavily in heat recovery technology last year. We opened up a new warehouse and cold storage center next to our factory. And we basically take the waste heat that you get if you stand at the back of your fridge. So we take the waste heat from our massive freezers, we literally pipe it via glycol underneath the road, and that heats the water to our boilers. And we need boilers because we steam cook, we gently steam cook our food to keep the nutrients in. And that was able to, as I said, we reduced by 6.5% intensity last year. We are still seeing the effects of that moving through this year. And we're hoping to actually achieve a 10% reduction target this year in scope 1. We also just invested in massively more efficient steam ovens as well. They're double the efficiency effectively as well. So lots of sort of big investment projects to actually reduce the things that we can directly reduce. Mm-hmm. And then the next stage is to really sort of hit on the scope 3 emissions.
We'll come to scope 3 later, I think. It's a bit of a dirty word. Ines, talking about Wickes, obviously a massive retailer, and scope 3, bit of a dirty word for you guys as well. But if we look at scope 1 and 2, you're tracking ahead of your SBTI targets.
We are, yes.
If I can flag that for you.
Thank you. So in terms of where we are very lucky that we are ahead on our scope 1 and 2 target, largely because we've of our electricity contracts, and we're working quite hard to electrify our buildings to decarbonize the operation. That is easier said than done in a business where no one really cares if their hammer is sustainable. And so we've kind of had to work through educating the business to get to the point where we're able to get the investment to make those changes. But we are very lucky that we're there. Obviously, our scope 3.1, the manufacture of the products that we sell, is by and far the largest part of our footprint. And what we do there is we work really closely with our suppliers. We have a fairly chunky supplier engagement target through our SPTs, and we work with them really, really closely. We have conversations in and out, and we try to find ways that are pragmatic with our suppliers to help them set their own targets effectively. You have to acknowledge that everyone goes at their own pace. No one is exactly at the same place. And if I find it hard because people don't necessarily worry about where their MDF comes from, you have to think about our suppliers who are in India, in China, who are just nowhere near where that journey has taken us thus far. So we work along the entirety of our emissions to try and decarbonize the business as quickly as possible, acknowledging that you have to meet people where they are and bring them on the journey bit by bit, effectively. And then, similarly, I would say that we're currently, I consider ourselves a baby sweep business. We've only just started the onboarding process. But that is taking up a lot of our time, but quite rightly so, because we do believe in what the power of that will unlock through having easily accessible data, easily translatable data, and a common language to share, not just with us, but eventually with our suppliers, by encouraging that educational piece that I think it really facilitates.
Lovely. And Chris, you're using Sweep for your corporate perimeter rather than the project, rather than the actual buildings themselves. So that's quite different, again, from Wickes and Butternut Box. And what's the reasoning behind that? Let's come to that. So what are the business benefits that you're looking to achieve?
Well, I think probably for 15, 16 years, we've reported annually in our CSER report various elements of environmental performance, our performance energy, our performance in carbon, our performance in water. But as we've got bigger and we've focused more and more on it, we've realized that we need a more methodical way to to capture all of that data. We need the data to be better organized. So we took the decision to harmonize all of the operations in that way. As I say, we're in more than 20 locations throughout the world. And it also gives us the flexibility, and I will talk about that, I'm sure, in a minute, to actually look at other things. So if we're a tenant in a building, which we are in some of our overseas offices, we're not actually in control of any gas. We may not be in control of the type of electricity that's being used. So it's the ability to actually model that carbon in different ways that you can actually do through the program, rather than just have activity-based data. So that helps us as well. So it really does, it allows us to capture information that otherwise we wouldn't really be able to capture through our energy meters.
Something that you all seem to have touched on is the collaboration that this all entails. And perhaps that's one of the biggest challenges of these exercises. Elisa, I think I saw you nodding at that point.
Yeah, I mean, we have to, obviously, you know, your carbon footprint is across your whole business. And it's really, really important to have all of your teams on board. So for example, we've got our Scope 3 reduction target. It's no good me just working towards that. I have to make sure that our product development teams are on board with that they are creating recipes that are thinking about carbon footprint, lower protein recipes, for example. I have to work with our procurement team to make sure that they're on board, that they're sourcing from suppliers that are also decarbonising, because that's our Scope 3. And also from regions of the world which are not leading to, for example, virgin deforestation. We also have to work with our strategic and our commercial teams to make sure that, you know, even though we want to actually reach these targets, and we do each year, but we need to make sure that we also retain our market share, we're still pleasing our customers, etc. So it really does have to go across. It is a big collaboration project, yeah.
And the $64,000 question is, how do you achieve that?
How do we achieve that? Well, at the moment, we actually we have a steering committee that sits on a quarterly basis, and we actually sort of go through all of our carbon data. We go through all of our initiatives that we're doing across the business. But what we hope from Sweep, at the moment, we just use spreadsheets. We're transitioning. We're also a baby Sweep. Okay, I love that. I love that term. Or maybe a teenager, I don't know. But anyway, we're also transitioning at the moment. So we're sort of implementing Sweep and still reporting on our spreadsheets. And everything sort of falls on myself at the moment. But what we'd love to get to, and one of the reasons why we're taking Sweep, is basically that our product development teams, our sourcing teams, our commercial teams can actually use Sweep, go in, get our carbon footprint, get the data that they need to make their decisions from the get-go, rather than that being something that has to be reported after the fact.
Yeah. Ines, you talked about education. Do you come up against resistance?
Would I say resistance? I think that might be a very big word, but a lot of being a sustainability professional nowadays is educating other people in the business. You know, I think a lot of people share this. We have lots of stakeholders in the business who want to do the best, and there's always that drive to kind of do the right thing. But do the right thing doesn't really cut the mustard on a business case. And so we have to work with everyone across the business. And, you know, I think of collaboration as internal as well as external. We collaborate really deeply internally by educating our co-workers, educating our colleagues. And I'm very lucky that I get to do a lot of that. And I love talking about, you know, educating people on the subject of sustainability, of decarbonisation, carbon measurement, carbon accounting. So there's a lot of that goes on. I think it's when you then move the conversation on from saying, well, this is why sustainability is important to you, and this is why you should give me more money. Then you really meet the hesitancy to collaborate effectively. But you can only get there by educating, by bringing people into your world effectively. And then externally, you know, I've already mentioned we work with our suppliers very closely. We also are part of a body that's called EDRA-GIN, which does sound like a Marvel villain, but isn't. And it's the Global Home Improvement Network, basically. And all of the home improvement businesses around the world, yes, this exists, get together and talk about decarbonisation. And they've launched an initiative called Make It Zero, and we're on the task force. We work with that because we acknowledge that you can only go forward if you go together effectively. Sustainability is very much like a marriage. And you have to work together and collaborate to get the mileage out of of your journey. So that's where we're really passionate about working with others.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I think the thing that makes it an initiative, a sustainability initiative, it makes it easier, is if you can actually make a positive impact, but also have another result, like a win-win. And it's so much easier. For example, this heat recovery project was actually very easy to persuade the business to take on, because we weren't just reducing our carbon emissions, we were reducing our gas usage. And guess what? We're reducing the money that we're spending on gas, and also our exposure to future price volatility. So, you know, if you can actually sort of tie it in with another sort of benefit, I think it makes it a lot easier, doesn't it, to actually sort of get people on board.
Yeah, sustainability by stealth almost, you know, worry about the business case and the sustainability benefits will take care of themselves. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're slightly running out of time. What were you going to add on that?
No, well, I was
Chris?
just going to say, really, I mean, I think one of the differentiators for us is most of our footprint is about moving people around, taking them to projects throughout the world rather than goods and services and other such things. So there's always that dilemma and that tension between, should we go? If we don't go, what are the consequences of not going? Which actually is bringing us quite close to the thinking about exactly that. How and when should we go? And in what mode should we go? And with what airline should we go? And all of those conversations are actually quite active now, particularly with the suppliers that we're actually working with, to see how they are decarbonising, because it's going to help us decarbonise when we know how they're decarbonising. So that integration across the supply chain, I think, is the thing that we find quite attractive.
Lovely. Unfortunately, we do have to wrap this up and move on to let Raf talk about the project. But we did want this to be a thought leadership evening, and we want you all to continue these conversations afterwards. So we've got lots to talk about, including Scope 3. So I hope that this has sparked some thoughts for you all. Thank you very much for bringing us your experience, Elisa, Ines, and Chris. And yeah, let's continue the conversation afterwards.